Welcome back. This is the third lesson on scripting, and in this lesson we'll be talking about functions. Now, functions are incredibly useful, but I really want to cover them because they will allow us to start playing with events, and events are the best thing about coding in Roblox. So let's get started. So I'm going to create a little platform just to place some parts on. So first thing, okay, so we have our platform. Let me change the name. And then we need a part on top of that platform. Let's add a sphere, change the color. Okay, and let's see, let's just call this sphere. Actually, let's call this sphere function. Okay, and let's attach a script and call this script function. Let me make this bigger. Just use control with the scroll wheel to make the text bigger inside these windows. Okay, so first we're going to go over some really simple examples, and the way that everybody always kind of presents functions is with these print statements, and they're actually kind of useful in this case. But the nice thing about learning to program with Roblox is that we can have much more interesting and fun examples, and we'll get to those in a little bit. But first thing, let's talk about what is a function. Well, a function is kind of like a little machine, and just as there are millions of different machines in the world that all do different things, the same thing can be said about functions. You can have them do anything. And we've actually already seen two functions. One of them is the wait function. And you always know it's a function because it has these two parentheses. And whatever you put inside the parentheses is called the input. So the input for the wait function is the number of seconds to wait. And we've been seeing this print function that shows up every time you create a new script, but we haven't actually seen what it does. And the print function does exactly what it says. It prints something. In this case, it prints hello world. And so we have two functions here in this script. We have wait for 5 seconds and then print hello world. And one thing that you can do to make your code a little easier to read is if you place two minus signs or two dashes, anything after that gets ignored. So it's called a comment, and it just helps to kind of keep your code organized and to let yourself know what things do. And it's really useful when your scripts start to get bigger. And so I'm going to start to put comments on here just to kind of help explain what these things do and to kind of organize the code as well. So this wait for 5 seconds, and this one prints some text. Okay, now here's the thing. Where is this text printed? If you hit play, nothing happens. At least nothing with our new print function. Okay, so where is it going? Well, the thing is, there are other windows, and one of those windows is the output window. And there are two ways to get to that output window. One is you can go to the view menu, and right here you will see the output window. If you click on it, it turns this off, or turns this on and off. And you can see right here, it printed hello world. Now this window is useful for a lot of things. It gives you errors, it gives you confirmation whenever you save and publish your game, but it also is where we print stuff with our print function. Now, another way to get to open this window is to, you see this little gray space up here at the top? If you right click on there, it gives you a quick little window menu, and you can open and close any of these. So I can close it here, right click, open it again. Okay, and so that's a really fast way, and that's usually the way that I'll open most windows, just by right clicking up here in this empty space. Okay, so now we have our output window. And like I said, if you were to save this, let me just show you. If you were to save to Roblox, it gives you a little confirmation, saved to Roblox. If you publish it to Roblox, it also tells you. And the thing why this is important is because sometimes the connection with Roblox just doesn't work, and it will tell you. It will tell you that you are not able to save or publish. Okay, so very useful window. Also, anytime you make a mistake in your scripts, this is where they will show up. So let me show you what happens if I misspell something. So let's say I say weights. Well, not only does it give me a little red line that tells me there's a problem, but when I hit play, it'll give me an error in my, and they're always in red. And right here it says weights, attempt to call a nil value. And sometimes the error messages that they give you are a little hard to understand. And that's just something that takes practice. Eventually you will figure out what these mean. But the important part is that it tells you where the error is. It's in script function. And here's the line number, line 1. So if I go to script function and I go to line 1, I can find my error and correct it. Okay, so very useful. Output window is incredibly useful. Oh, and I forgot to hit stop. It still worked. Okay. So what next? What next? Okay, so we have a couple of functions, and there's actually hundreds that are built in to the Lua programming language and Roblox that you can use that are already written for you. But that's not really the useful part about functions. The useful part is that you can make your own. Okay, so there's two pieces. So the first thing we need to do, we have to define our function. Okay, and then the next thing, or the last thing, will be to run or call or invoke or execute. There's all kinds of names or start. There's all kinds of words that people use to start a function. You just kind of have to get used to all the vocabulary that's there. I'll usually say run the function or call the function, but again, there's just a bunch of different names for this. Run the function. Okay, so how do we define a function? Well, the first thing is you have to type function, and it turns red. Then you have to give it a name. Let me make some space here. Oh, actually, I didn't want to do that. Okay, so I'm going to make this function. Let me see what the function name would be. Function, I'll say print something. And the great thing is you can call your function whatever you want. Next thing you need is a couple of parentheses, and then go forward one space and hit enter, and it'll autocomplete with an end at the end. Now, everything that's inside of there is what we want our function to do. So our function is going to be really simple. I'm just going to move this. Actually, I'm going to move both of these down there. This is what our function does. So I'm going to use Alt, down. I'm going to tab to give it some space. Okay. And there is our function. So our function will basically wait 5 seconds and then print hello world. Now, here's the thing. If you were to hit play right now, it wouldn't do anything because all we've done is to define our function, to tell Roblox what we want our function print something to do. How do you actually run it? Well, the way that we run other functions is just by writing the name with parentheses, right? So if you want to wait for 3 seconds, you just write down the name of the function. And you do the same thing with any functions that you write, that you create. So you do print, and actually once you've created your function, it shows up in autocomplete. So you can just do that. And that's it. You just put the name, you write the name down, type in the name, and then put a couple of parentheses, and that will run your function. And so now if I hit play, we should see it wait for 5 seconds and then print hello world. Let's see if it does it. Waiting, 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 and then, and it did it. It waited for 5 seconds, and then it printed hello world. So it worked. So this is about as simple as it gets with functions. And here's the thing. You can name your function anything, and you can make it, you can actually run it more than one time. So let's say we want to do this twice. Let's try that. This should call it once, and then call it another time. And Hopefully they'll both wait 5 seconds. I'm not sure actually. Let's see. One worked. Oh, and then 2 worked. But anytime that it does the same thing, it just puts a little times the number of times that it's been called. So I think you can click on this and it'll show you both of them. But yeah, so it's been called twice. It's been run twice. Okay, so it worked. And you could keep doing this, right? You could keep calling this function as many times as you want. And this is really useful. This is one of the useful things about functions, is that you only have to define it once, and then anytime you want to run that code, you just type out the name with parentheses and it will run your code for you. So this is really nice, not only because it helps you save in typing, but if you make a mistake somewhere inside of your function, very easy to fix it, right? Instead of going through everywhere that that code is located, it's only in one place. So it makes it easy to fix errors, okay? And this is basically how you use functions. There's a little bit more. Sometimes you can have an input here, and we can actually make a function that does that real quick. So let's change print something to actually take an input. Okay, so when we type something in here, it'll print whatever we type inside the parentheses, which is basically what the print function already does. Okay, so let's get rid of this hello world. And the thing is, we have to name what it is we want our input to be called. And you can just call it input. That's fine. And then we're going to print the input. Okay, so whatever we put in here, this is what gets input to our function, and it will get printed. Okay, and so let's say print, you have to use a couple of parentheses. We'll put print hello 1, and then in the second one, I will do print hello 2. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's going to call print something twice. It's going to print hello 1 the first time, wait 5 seconds, and then print hello 2 the second time. So let's make sure this works. Turn around. Actually, I don't need to turn around. All right, it printed hello 1. It should wait 5 seconds and then print hello 2. And it works. Print hello 1, print hello 2. Okay, so this is the basics of functions, and this is kind of the way everybody presents it, right? Like whenever you have a computer science class, you will basically get an explanation like this. But because we have Roblox and because this is a game design tool, we can have much more interesting, much more fun examples here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some stuff with properties on our object. So let's change some stuff, and we can actually call this. Let's see. What do we want to call it? We don't need any input on this one yet. All right, let's call this function change color. And when you're naming your function, it's a good idea to go ahead and capitalize the first letter in each of the words. It just makes it easier to read. And also when you're naming your functions, call it something that is easy to understand. Eventually, if you get into this, you're going to have dozens or hundreds of functions in your code, and each of them should tell you immediately what they do. Otherwise, you'll have to go and read through what each function does. Okay, so we're going to change the color. And again, we know how to do this now. We just say script.parent.brickColor equals brickColor.random. Okay, and then we're going to call our function here. We're going to run our function just by typing in the name. And that's it. Let's see if it works. So actually, what we want to do is wait a little bit. So let's put a wait statement in here. Let's wait 5 seconds before we change the color. That way it'll give me a little bit of time to turn around and look at the sphere. Okay, it's yellow, and it's going to change to blue. It worked. Okay, so really simple, right? We have a function that changes the color. All right, well, let's write some more functions. And the great thing is that you can write as many of these as you want. So let's write another one. Let's say, what are we going to do this time? Let's say function, what else can we say? Let's say function make invisible. That's going to be this function. Okay. And let's see, this one is going to do script.parent.transparency equals, I think it's 1, right? That makes it invisible. Okay, and then if we want to run our function after we change the color, and let's make this one also wait 5 seconds. Okay, let's run it right after our change color. Yeah, and we're ready to go. So this first function will change the color after waiting 5 seconds, and this second function will change the transparency, make it invisible after 5 seconds. Okay, let's go ahead and play it, make sure it works. So it should be changing the color, change it to a green, and then after 5 seconds, it should make it invisible, and it's gone. Awesome, so it works. Okay, so here's one thing you can do. Like, you'll notice this little caret that points down. If you click on it, it actually will collapse all of this to give you a little more space, which is nice. And you can click on it again to expand it. But this makes your code a little more compact, just a little easier to read. Okay, so let's see. Let's play around with this some more. What else can we do? Oh, didn't want to do that. Let's do another function. Let's see, what can we do? Let's look at the properties for sphere function, and let's see if we can't change something else. So let's see, cast shadow, color, material, reflectance, transparency. Let me see. You know which one would be nice? Would be the size. I haven't shown you how to change the size or position or any of these. And when you look at the size, right here, this size property, you see how it has 3 numbers? Well, that's called a vector. And if you haven't seen that in math class yet, it just means it has 3 numbers in it, right? And if you click on this little caret, you'll see that the 3 numbers are X, Y, Z. So how do I change the size? So right now the size is 444, right? Well, if I wanted to change it in the game, it's pretty easy, right? I just change the number to 8, hit enter, and boom, my sphere is bigger. But what if I wanted to do that in code, right? How would I do that? Let me move this up a little bit because we're going to make it bigger. Okay, so let me go back to this script. Okay, so we're going to make a function make bigger. Okay, and how do we do that? Well, let's go ahead. We know it's going to be script.parent. I think it's size. Yeah, there it is, size. Now this is a little different from before. This one you have to do vector3. Whoops, sorry. Let me hit Control Z. You have to do vector3.new. And then inside of here, you put the 3 numbers separated by commas for the new size. So I want it to be bigger. Let's say 8, 8, 8. And that will change my size to double. So let me go ahead and, oh, and I forgot to make it wait for a few seconds, just so you can see these all run. Okay, and let's say make bigger, and let's see if it works. Okay, so it's up in the air. It's going to change color. Then it's going to, oh, you know what? The only thing is I made it invisible, so you're not going to be able to see the size. Let me, let me fade it a little bit instead of making it invisible. Actually, you know what? We can run these after each other. So I'm going to run the make invisible function after make bigger. So I'm going to change the color, then I'm going to make it bigger, and then I'm going to make it invisible. Because if you make it invisible first, you can't see any of the other changes. So let's just go ahead and see if this works. Okay, so here we go. So let me zoom out. So we have a blue sphere, and then we have a bigger sphere, and then finally it should disappear. And it's gone. Okay, and this is actually really important. You'll notice that I changed the order here. And what happens is after you've defined your functions, these you can define in any order you want as long as they are above wherever you actually call them. You can't like call this. Let me show you what would not work. You could not put change color up here before you define what change color does. And I'm pretty sure it'll give you an error. Some languages, it doesn't care. Let me see if this, I'm pretty sure Lua cares though. Let me see. Yeah, it gives you an error. So here's what happens basically. You are trying to call a function that doesn't exist yet because you call it here, you run it here, but you don't tell Roblox what it does until here. And the thing is that these scripts, they run from the top down. So what you need to do is you need to define stuff first, tell Roblox what these functions do before you actually run them, Okay, so I have all of these functions defined up here. And these, you could put these in any order you wanted. So you could put make bigger at the top. The only thing that matters is that any definition for a function comes above when you actually call it, where you actually run the function. Okay, but once we get to this point, this function will be run first, then 5 seconds later, this function will be run, and then later, this one function will be run. So it always goes from top down. So really important point. All right, so we've got a few, we have a few functions. Let's make another one. And I'm just gonna try and show you as many of these as possible. So let's make a smaller function. Whoops. Okay, and let's see, this one's gonna be script.parent.size equals vector 3. Vector 3 just means it has 3 numbers. A new one is what I want to make. And I'm going to change it back to something small. So I'm going to make it 111. Okay. And that should make it small. And then I want to call it, let's see, I want to call it after I change the color. Okay. So now I'm going to make it bigger, change the color, make it smaller, and then make it invisible. And let's see if this works. All right, so first thing, bigger, and then change the, oh, you know what happens? Yeah, sometimes it changes it to the same color. It made its, yeah, let me run that again, actually. So when you hit random, sometimes it'll give you the same color. Doesn't happen every time, but sometimes it does. So it's yellow, and then it's going to get bigger. Hopefully this time it'll change to a different color. Yeah. Oh, you know what? Oh, I forgot to put a wait for 5 seconds on one of these. Hold on. Let me go up here. Which one? Oh, I forgot to put a wait on here. There we go. Yeah, I forgot to add that. Make sure I added it on all of them. Yep. Just so that it's easier to see. So each of these functions, they will wait 5 seconds before they do their thing. Okay. So here we go. Yellow. Bigger, purple, there we go, smaller, and then it should make it invisible. All right, it worked. Okay, so we've changed a few things. Let me see what else we can do. Let me see, look at the sphere function. So we did this. So these are easy, right? These are just true false. So you can change the cast shadow. I don't even know what archivable does, to be honest. Can collide just means you can pass through it. Can touch has to do with like being able to click on it, and we'll get to that when we get to events, because we'll be able to make things happen when you click on things. Anchored, you know what that does? It can move or it can not move. Shape, let's not do that one. So that's pretty good. Okay, so we've covered a lot of really good stuff here. We've shown you how to define functions, your own custom functions, how to run them, and then how to use them to change some of these properties. Oh, whoops, I didn't want to do that. Okay, so that's one benefit of although I should say those are some of the benefits of using functions. Just the fact that it makes your code reusable, it means less typing, it means that if you do have an error, they're easy to fix because the code is just in one place, right? Imagine, you have a script and you've got this change color function and you call it in a bunch of different places. Well, if there's something wrong or if you want to change it, you only have to change it in one place, and that's very useful, okay? And then my favorite reason for using functions is because they will let us learn how to use events. Okay, and the other thing that they do is they kind of help you clean up your code a little bit. So let's do that actually. So let me see. Let me see if I have it. Oh, I already cleaned it up there. Let me do a new one, and then we'll clean it starting at the beginning. Okay, so we have our sphere. And I'm actually going to create another one. Let's do another one so I can make some new functions and make it neat and organized. So let me move this out of the way. It'll do its thing over there. And let's make another one. So I need another sphere. There it goes. And this one, let me change the color. Okay. And this one I'm going to call, I don't even know, just another sphere. attach a script. And this one, what are we going to do? We're going to make it another light. So I'm going to say script func light. And I'm just abbreviating function with func. Okay. You will see a lot of abbreviation in names when you're coding, just because nobody wants to type everything out all the time. So they try to make it as small as possible. Okay. So what are we going to do? Let me close some of these. Let's see. Oh, and actually, you know what I should have done? I should have attached the function to the light effect. So let me do that actually. So I'm going to change this to white because this is going to be a light. And let me put it up here a little bit. Okay, and let me get rid of this script that I attached. Just delete it. And I'm going to add a spotlight, I guess, or a point light. Yeah, let's add a point light. And then on the point light, I'm going to add a script. And it's not showing up, so I just start typing script and it shows it. Okay. And I want to change the name on this one. So I'm going to call this script func light. And so we already know how to do this, right? We've already done this before. So we're going to wait, I don't know, 5 seconds, or no, 1 second. We're going to do script dot parent dot enabled equals, I don't know, false. We'll turn it off. And then we'll do the same thing, but we will what do you call it? We will change the value. So let me copy this and paste it. Okay. So what is this going to do? This is going to turn the light off, and then it's going to turn the light on. And we've already learned how to repeat this, right? We put it inside of a while loop. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make a couple of functions that do this. Okay, so let me write these out and then I'll put that code inside of there. So I'm going to say function turn on. Okay, that's my first function. I'm going to move this code inside of there because this turns the light on. Okay, then I'm going to make another function turn off. Okay, and I'm going to put this code inside of there. So I'm going to just move this down using Alt and the down arrow, then Tab to give it a little bit of space. Okay, and let me clean this up over here. All right, so now I have two functions. One turns on the light effect, one turns off the light effect, okay? And what I want to do is I want to put these inside of a while loop. So I'm going to say while true, hit enter to autocomplete. I'm going to say turn on, whoops. And I'm going to say, oh, I didn't want to do that. And then I'm going to type turn off. So it's basically going to just turn this on and then turn this off and inside of a while loop. Okay. Yeah, let's test it and let's see if it works. Yeah. Oh, it is working, but it's not very bright. I guess because everything else is bright here. But it is working. Let me change a few things. Let me make, you know, one thing I can do? You can actually change it to night or darker, and then the light effect will show up much better. So we just go into the lighting and just change your clock time. Change your clock time so that it's night. That looks much better. Okay, now I'm gonna hit play. And now you should be able to see the light effect much better. And everything actually glows. That actually looks pretty neat. Okay, so here's my bulb, and it is doing its thing, turning on and off, and it works. And so what this is doing is it's calling these functions inside of a while loop. Okay, so this while loop is going to keep repeating turn on and turn off. Turn on waits for 1 second and then enables the light effect. Turn off waits for 1 second and then enables or turns off the light effect. Okay, so it works. And the thing that's nice about this, and this is really the way that you'll start to code your own scripts, is that this is like much easier to read, right? Like it's not just code all over the place. You've got these functions that you define and then you call them in different places. And so it's much easier to see what this code is doing, right? And this is a simple script, but when these scripts get longer, it becomes much more difficult to tell what it is that's going on. Even for yourself, like if you code something and come back to it a week later, you'll most likely have to look through it and figure out what was I doing here, right? Especially when your scripts get long. But if you have everything named, in a easy to understand way, if you use functions, it becomes a lot easier to just remember what it is you're doing. And trust me, that will be very useful if you keep coding. All right, so we've taken our one script and we've cleaned it up and made it much easier to read using functions. All right, let's see what else. Let me change the clock time. Actually, man, that looks really nice. Let me change the clock time back though. I think it's 16.5 or 14.5. Yeah. Okay. So what else can we do? I was going to show you one last thing with these functions, and that is like having an input. And actually we can do it with this same function. So do you see right now how I have two functions and they basically do the same thing, except one of them has true here and one of them has false here. So what would be more useful would be to just have one function that takes an input and then changes this depending on the input. And we can write that function really quickly. It'll be function, and I'll just call it turn on off. Whoops, didn't want to do that. Okay, function turn on off. And basically it's going to have this same code except for one little difference. So I'm going to just copy that and then paste it right here. Okay. And instead of false, we want it to have an input, right? And so we're going to say, I don't know, what would be a good actually we'll just call it input. A lot of times you'll want to name these so that they're more descriptive, but input is fine. And then we want to set the enabled to whatever this input is. Okay. So if I call this function, if I go over here and change these both, and then I put in here true for the first one and false for the second one, what's going to happen is this function gets called twice, right? But each time it has a different input. So here, when we call turn on off, let me close this one. When we call, let me make this a little smaller. Yeah, when we call turn on off, we have an input of true. And so it gets sent here to this input, and then it gets sent here. And so it says script.parent.enabled equals true, because that was the input. The second time that we call it in this loop, we input false. And so that's the input here. And so this is false, and this is false. And so we only need one function that does both turning on and off, depending on what the input is. And let's see if this works. So if I hit play, this should turn it on and off. And again, a little hard to see, but I think you can see that. Let me face my character. Oh, I didn't want to do that. let me anchor that real quick. And let me make it dark again. Where's my clock time? Oh, there it is. Let's make that 18. 18's fine. Okay, let me run it. And you'll see that it does the same thing as before. There we go. And we have a function that turns our light effect on and off. And here's something else we can do. Let me show you this, because we're going to start doing this in the next few lectures. So you see how I've been changing the clock time in the properties window for lighting? Well, we can actually do that in code. So let me show you how you would do that. So let me change this back to 14.5, which I think is the default value. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to do this actually in code. Okay, so let me make a function that says, and we'll have an input on this one too. We'll say function change time. Okay, and this is going to have an input. we'll just actually, and you can reuse this name. So we'll just use input again. Each of these functions is kind of separate, so you don't have to worry about reusing names or anything like that. Okay, and we're going to say, here's how you get to that though. So everything is kind of in the game. So you say game dot, and then you get all of these choices. And let me shrink this so you can see. So in game, there's workspace, there's players, there's lighting, and these are all accessible using this game keyword. So when you put the dot, you can do workspace, or you can just go down to lighting, and then you get the dot again, and now we get all of these properties, and one of them is clock time. So let's go ahead and change that, and you can change it to whatever the input is. Okay, so we've got a change time function, and let me shrink this. Okay, and we're going to call it right here. So we're going to change the time. I'm going to change it first. We're going to make it, let me see, this was going to, so true is going to turn the light on. So we want it to be dark. So let's make that 18. And then we'll call it again here, change time, and we'll change it back to 14.5. And we'll just keep doing this over and over. And so what's going to happen is it's going to change the lighting effect for the whole world when it turns on the light, and then changes it back when it turns it off. So let's see if that works. And it does. Oh, except, you know what? I think I got them backwards. Yeah, I do have them backwards. Hold on. Let me switch that. Let's see. So when it's night, then it's turning it off. Let me see. Enabled is true. How did I get that wrong? Huh, that's weird. Hold on. So when it's night, right here, this should be night, and then I'm turning the light on. And then I'm, oh, you know why? I know why, because I should have done it here. Okay, hold on. There we go. This is why. It's because the wait, it waits 1 second and then it turns the light on. So what it's doing here is it's waiting 1 second, turning the light on, and then immediately it's changing the clock time, and then it's waiting 1 second, turning the light off, and then immediately changing the clock time. And this is actually one of the trickier parts of coding, just kind of going through your code and really figuring out what's happening. And this is just something that just takes practice, honestly. So let's go ahead and test this, and now it should look better. Yeah, now my light's on when the sky turns dark, which is what I wanted. All right. All right, so that's done. Okay, so we learned a lot of stuff in this lesson. We learned a little bit about functions. We learned some more about changing properties, just how to kind of structure this all out. But again, the real reason for learning all of this stuff is just so we can start playing with events, because that's really what's fun about coding, being able to react to things that happen in the game. And we're going to learn 3 events. We're going to learn the touch event. So whenever you touch something, this makes things happen. We're going to learn about the clicked event. So whenever you click on something, this will make things happen. And then finally, we'll use the keyboard event. And so whenever you press a key on your keyboard, it will make things happen. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that in the following lectures.